Midday Show. Hugh Douglas, Joe Giglio. We'll get back to all your phone calls here on Andy Reid. Are you ready to acknowledge he is becoming the greatest coach in pro football history? All right, Hugh, we get the news Saturday night. How about our guy, Howard Eskin, first to the news Saturday night that
Look
Moore.
at the King still working on the weekend.
He still got it.
Eskin, you're a dope.
No, not on this one. Not on this one. He was right. So Kellen Moore's the guy, Hugh, and then everyone came out with it yesterday with all the national guys. Moore's the guy, new Eagles offensive coordinator. That was audio of him talking about let it rip. Here's what I when I dove into it, Hugh, a couple things stood out to me.
What's that?
One, he has a good track record for being a young coach. He's been a coordinator, and the 4 years in Dallas, they averaged 27.7 points a game. Obviously, this year didn't go quite as well with the Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
He will throw the ball a lot, which is going to be what the Eagles
right
want.
in the wheelhouse.
Yep, he'll throw the football a lot. And the Cowboys were the best in the league against the blitz 2 years ago, his last year there. So I see the positives for Kellen Moore. I do wonder why the last 2 years have not gone great, right? Dak was better without him this past year. Have to acknowledge it.
That's the thing that sticks out to me.
And Herbert went a little backwards this year with him. Although
that's a one-year coordinator.
Yeah, and that whole thing was kind of
and
bad.
He was, and when he was a coordinator in Dallas from I think it was 2019 to 2023.
2022.
2022.
Yeah,
so
4
that's
years.
4 years.
Yep.
So he was 500. You know, it was he had 2 losing seasons, 2 winning seasons, 2 back-to-back winning seasons. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the progression of him being better in his last 2 years. But there was something where I guess there was a blind spot between him and Dak Prescott. And when he moved on from that, Dak became a better quarterback. So hopefully he's learned from his mistakes. I mean, since that's the theme of the show this morning, you know, doing better at the new place as opposed to the old place. But I tell you what, man, you better hurry and throw all that damn Dallas Cowboy stuff away, because that right there, a little bit. I know he's a year removed from that.
He's a Charger,
but still.
yeah, more of a Charger.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But that still bothers me a little bit.
What have I done to
that
deserve
little
this?
goofy.
So do you want him to get it out of the office, like his home office?
No, just get rid. Like I might be a little bit ridiculous, but that little goofy smile that he had when he was on the Cowboys sideline didn't rub me the right way. Yeah, he needed to work on that. He needed to work on a little bit of Philly grit. Go grab a couple of cheesesteaks or something. Sit here, get some Rita's water ice or something. He has to do something, because I still see him with that little goofy smirk on his face when he was with Dallas.
So here's the other thing I do like about Kellen Moore. Motion. Last year, the Chargers were 15th. Chargers were 6th, in the whole NFL last year. Year before, the Cowboys were 15th. We know the Eagles dead last. So there's going to be more motion to this offense. I liked what he did with Keenan Allen. I think Devontae Smith is a similar kind of player to Keenan Allen. And Keenan Allen, I think before he got hurt, was leading the NFL in receptions. So we could see a gigantic jump in production, even from what Devontae's done anyway, with this guy here. Overall, I'm good with it. He wasn't my first choice, but I see a pretty high floor for Kellen Moore. The other thing to note about him, and then we'll hear from Mike Garafolo what's out there about Kellen Moore, and kind of how this whole thing might work. Hugh, the Eagles have liked him for a while. He was interviewed for the head coaching job when they hired Sirianni. So this tells me that this hire came from Roseman and Lurie. They like this guy, and they told, hey Nick, let's bring this guy in.
Yeah, that's what it was, and because they want to try to evolve this offense. This is a throwing offense, and that's what they want to do. He's a coach that likes to throw the ball, and I think they want to try to make this transition as easy as they possibly can for Jalen. Like, not change. When I say transition, they don't want to change too much of this offense so that there won't be so much of a learning curve.
Would you feel challenged by Moore if you were Sirianni? I would. Could you imagine if they were considering other people for the Midday Show before they paired us together? We knew about that, right? It was public information. And then they hired the people that maybe were going to have this job to just work at WIP. I'd feel like that's kind of weird.
It's one of those things where when you talk about Kellen Moore and his trajectory, at some point he'll probably be looking to get a head coaching job.
Of course.
He's a young guy.
He's only, I think, 36. He's young.
He's a young guy. So you might be looking at your successor, like, to be totally honest. And I think that with that being said, Coach Sirianni should feel a little uncomfortable, because as much as we've praised him to that what he's done in the past and all this other stuff, I feel like in a situation like this, you should never get complacent. And that kind of feels like what has happened. You dodged the bullet. Let's just be real about this situation. There's a good possibility that if he was anywhere else on any other team, that what happened to the collapse of this football team is a fireable offense.
I agree.
It's a fireable. Let's be real about that. It's a fireable offense, and he dodged the bullet in that sense. So, with that being said, we know what we know about Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles. They hedged their bets. They hedged their bets when they paid Carson Wentz and they drafted Jalen Hurts. So, to me, this situation is no different.
So let's hear from Mike Garafolo yesterday, NFL Network. I thought it was interesting the way he framed Moore and the working relationship and how this is going to work with this new Eagles offense.
The thought process, from my understanding, is this is an experienced play caller with the chops to fit in and stand up to a veteran coaching staff that the Eagles have down there. Moore has also worked with some good quarterbacks, including Dak Prescott in the NFC East, so he's back in the division. And the Eagles also see him as a young, bright play caller with some fresh ideas separate from what they have done the last couple of years in Philly, so they'll mesh the two systems together and hopefully get Jalen Hurts and that offense going.
What I took from that was really interesting, the wording there, he has the chops, was that it, to stand up to a veteran coach staff? I wonder if he was asserting that Brian Johnson had ideas and he didn't want to
But it always feels like that.
Yeah,
when you hear that.
Right. It's like
what hear the way they're saying.
Right. It made me feel like maybe the last offensive coordinator had his own ideas, but he didn't want to stand up to Sirianni or whoever. And they think this guy's got the chops to say, no, we're doing it this way.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it sounds like you got the backing of some higher-ups that, if it gets a little testy in that locker room or that meeting room, you can go to somebody and tell them that, somebody's not listening to you, or something like that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I like the move. Kellen Moore, the new offensive coordinator. It's not a perfect resume, but it's a pretty solid one early in his career. 215-592-9494. Your reaction to Kellen Moore and, of course, Andy Reid. They win yesterday. The Chiefs going back to the Super Bowl. Are you ready to acknowledge he's becoming the greatest football coach of all time? It feels weird to say it because I hadn't been ready to acknowledge it. I've been on Belichick for years. He's the greatest coach, but I'm watching this play out, and it's like I could see this happening. We're not far away. Andy coaches 5 more years. They win in 2 weeks, and the next 5 years, I'd be shocked if they don't get to more Super Bowls. He's going to overtake Belichick. It's going to happen here. 215-592-9494. Let's go to Rob at Delco. Hey, Rob.
Yo, Joe. What's up, Joe? What's up, Hugh?
What's going on,
Rob?
Hey, Kyle. Listen, I'm going to be a little bit of a Debbie Downer here, okay?
Okay.
Let's just start real fast with the Sixers. I'm highly disappointed in Embiid. Joe, although it's give and take with him, the guy is arguably one of the best players in the league, if not the best player in the league, Hugh. But
Yes.
This is why we'll never get the number 1 seed, Joe. This is why we'll never, I don't know, maybe get to that point. I just can't count on him, Joe. And that's probably why I would take Jokic over him, just because of the availability, Joe. I love him. If he could give me 70 games a year, low 70s, but he's never going to give us that, Joe. And we'll just never get that number 1 seed, that home court throughout. And I was just upset he didn't play, Joe.
Yeah, Rob,
We weren't the only one.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken, that was the game where they were yelling, "Where's Embiid?"
Yeah, it
They were
was
screaming
Denver.
it.
And the other part, Rob, so there's 2 parts to that. One is I'm with you, and it's the Sixers part of Embiid and how it's like it's great, but there's always something missing. And the other part is this is why the NBA has a problem. Like it's a ABC game, 5:30 on a Saturday on championship weekend. You want it like Sixers, Nuggets, Embiid, Jokic, and he doesn't play. The same thing happened last year, and it's like I think it's hard for people to follow the league all year when you have no idea if you're going to turn on a game and the star player is going to play or not. It's like, why am I invested in this?
And before I touch on Reed real fast, Joe, the camera mentioned something earlier where it's like if it's close between Embiid and somebody else, you kind of give the nod to somebody else just because of that fact.
Mm-hmm.
He taps out a lot. And maybe he's really hurt you. I don't know. But this is just such a history with the guy. And,
Yeah, see, that's the bad part about it. You come off of the game, the 70-point game that you had, and everybody's getting excited about it, and then you I don't know what's wrong with him, but it is one of those looks where you give him the side eye. You're definitely giving him the side eye.
Well, no matter what, you're frustrated, right? If he's hurt, it's frustrating because he's hurt, and if he's just ducking Jokic, then you're embarrassed. Like as a Sixers fan, like why is he ducking the other best player?
He came
and it was here. You know what I mean? It's easier to puff your chest when you're home, but do it on the road. Show me something on the road. That's what championship DNA is. We all question Mahomes on the road, and they're getting it done. But you know what? I don't want people to forget. Spags won that game yesterday because, listen, Baltimore's defense handled them in the second half. They really handled them in the second half. I mean, the strip sack fumble, right, of Lamar. Flowers coughing up the ball at the 8-yard line. Lamar forcing the ball to likely in the end zone with 3 guys around them. They kind of handled Mahomes a little bit, that defense, in the second half. Spags won that game yesterday. He clearly won that game yesterday.
Spags is incredible. I mean, it's wild that Spags Like Andy was able to refine Spags again, and
Sure.
Spagnuolo. You talk about the greatest defensive coordinators in history, just accolades.
Yeah.
He's up there now. I mean, he won with the Giants. He's won with Kansas City. He's ridiculous.
With that NASCAR defense.
Woo.
Oh yeah,
Hugh,
Spags is doing this
did
thing.
you ever play under him, Hugh, or no?
He was here. He learned under Jim Johnson, and it's funny because every time I see, especially when they dial up some of them blitzes, that's Jim Johnson all over that, man. I mean, and it just gives me goosebumps.
Especially
they were
when he
playing
sends the
yesterday,
secondary guys. Yeah.
man, Karlaftis. You know, we were like, it's funny because we were talking about him during the course of the draft for this year and the guys that we potentially wanted to get, and he was a guy that, to be honest with you, when me and Joe talked about it, I didn't see a whole lot of him on film. That's why, just a sidebar, that's why you look at coaching matters, because there was not a whole lot about Karlaftis that I saw that made me want him here. But he's been a hell of a player for the Kansas City Chiefs in that scheme that they put him in.
And Joe, let me end with my famous quote about Nick. But you know what? I wish we would have hired Spags. Bring Spags here as my head coach. I would have taken that. Maybe he could have whipped this defense in and had Kellen Moore, and I'd have been more happy with that because you would have had the legendary guy taking care of that D, and Kellen Moore, who, I'm all right with it. We'll see what happens. But you know what, Joe? Hey, Nick, boom. Because Kellen's going to be coming for your job.
Watch out, Rob. Good phone call there. Yeah, Andy's lucked out a little bit. It's almost like Jim Johnson with Andy the first time, that Spags doesn't get any looks to be a head coach again. He was a disaster as a head coach with the Rams, and now he's just back to being a coordinator, and he helps them. But I look at Spags gets credit. Mahomes gets a ton of credit. But Andy Reid is overseeing the entire thing, and he's back again for the fourth time in 5 years. And I mean, think about the game, what was it, 2 years ago when the Bengals beat them in the title game? That game was really close, but right down to the end. I mean, we're this close to Andy being, and the other one he lost was in overtime to Tom Brady. Like, there's a world where Andy's in 6 straight Super Bowls. It's like that close to being real.
Yeah.